I had been counting down the days until the weekend, eagerly anticipating my escape from the chaos of city life. The thought of immersing myself in the tranquil serenity of the forest was all I could think about. I packed my bags, prepared my fishing gear, and set out early in the morning. As I drove towards the forest, my heart raced with excitement. I could almost smell the fresh pine scent and hear the leaves rustling in the wind. The sun was shining brightly, casting a warm glow on the lush greenery that surrounded me. The roads were winding, and every turn revealed a new breathtaking view. When I finally arrived, I quickly set up my tent and headed towards the lake to fish. The water was crystal clear, and I could see fish swimming beneath its surface, the sound of birds chirping and leaves rustling. The day passed by quickly, and before I knew it, the sun was beginning to set. I had caught a few fish, and as I sat by the fire cooking them, I felt content and at peace. The stars began to twinkle in the sky, and the moon cast a soft glow over the lake. As the night grew darker, I crawled into my tent, exhausted from the day's activities. I was lulled into a peaceful slumber by the sound of crickets chirping and leaves rustling in the wind. However, my peaceful slumber was soon interrupted by a blood-curdling scream that shattered the tranquility of the forest. I jolted awake, unsure of what was happening. As I stepped out of my tent, my heart racing with fear, I saw a girl running towards me, her clothes torn and her face covered in blood. I didn't know what to do, so I quickly grabbed my keys and ran to my car. The girl followed me, and as we drove out of the forest, she explained that she had been attacked by a group of men while hiking. My heart sank as I listened to her story. I felt sick to my stomach at the thought of such violence occurring in a place that had always brought me so much joy and peace. We drove to the nearest police station, and I made sure that the girl received medical attention. The drive back home was a blur, my mind racing with thoughts and emotions. The forest would never be the same for me again. The once tranquil and peaceful haven now held a dark and sinister memory. Despite the horrific incident, I knew that I would always love the forest and would continue to go there whenever I could. However, I would always be more cautious and aware of my surroundings, knowing that danger could lurk around any corner. The memory of that night would forever be etched in my mind, a reminder that even in the most serene places, evil can still exist. The memory of the attack stayed with me for a long time, and I found myself constantly looking over my shoulder. Whenever I was in the forest, it took a while for me to feel comfortable enough to go back. But eventually, I did. I made sure to take extra precautions, like hiking with a group or carrying pepper spray with me. As time passed, the fear slowly faded, and I was able to enjoy the forest once again. However, the memory of that night never truly left me. It served as a reminder that we can never be too careful, even in the most peaceful of places. I continued to visit the forest, but I always remained vigilant, knowing that danger could be lurking around any corner. Despite the darkness that had tainted my beloved forest, I still found solace in its beauty and tranquility. The sound of leaves rustling in the wind and birds chirping in the trees still brought me peace, and I knew that no matter what happened, the forest would always hold a special place in my heart. As we approached our campsite, the excitement in the car was palpable. We could hardly contain ourselves as we unloaded our gear and set up camp. The sound of laughter and chatter filled the air. As we worked together to pitch our tents and build a fire, we roasted marshmallows and told stories late into the night, feeling completely at ease in this tranquil paradise. But as we settled into our tents for the night, an eerie feeling crept over us. It was as if the forest had taken on a different energy, one that we couldn't quite put our finger on. The once peaceful sounds of nature had become muted, as if something was holding its breath. As we approached our campsite, the excitement in the car was palpable. We could hardly contain ourselves as we unloaded our gear and set up camp. The sound of laughter and chatter filled the air. As we worked together to pitch our tents and build a fire, we roasted marshmallows and told stories late into the night, feeling completely at ease in this tranquil paradise. But as we settled into our tents for the night, an eerie feeling crept over us. It was as if the forest had taken on a different energy, one that we couldn't quite put our finger on. The once peaceful sounds of nature had become muted, as if something was holding its breath. In the dead of night, I couldn't sleep. I felt restless and uneasy, so I decided to take a walk to clear my head. As I strolled through the woods, I noticed a dark shadow moving across the trees. It was a figure, but it was too far away to make out any details. I tried to brush it off as my imagination. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Suddenly, a loud noise shattered the silence of the night. It was a chainsaw, and it was getting closer by the second. My heart raced as I turned to run back to camp. But fear gripped me as I realized that whatever was making that noise was coming straight for me. The sound grew louder and louder, drowning out all other noises. It was like a nightmare come to life. I burst into my friends' tents, frantically waking them up and urging them to pack up quickly. We threw our things into the car and peeled out of there as fast as we could. The sound of the chainsaw echoed in our ears as we drove away, leaving behind the terror of that night. Looking back on it now, we never did find out what was making that noise. But the memory of that night stayed with us forever, a reminder that sometimes, even the most peaceful places can hold dark secrets. We learn to respect nature's power and to always trust our instincts. The rest of our trip was spent in a state of unease. We couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that something sinister was lurking just beyond our sight. We tried to enjoy ourselves, but every rustle in the bushes, every creak of a tree branch sent shivers down our spines. We packed up our things and left that very night, too scared to stay another moment in that cursed place. As we drove away, we could hear the creatures' howls echoing through the woods, a haunting reminder of the terror we had experienced. We never did return to that forest again, but the memory of that trip stayed with us forever. It taught us that nature can be both beautiful and dangerous, and that sometimes it's better to leave well enough alone. The forest was a lush and vibrant oasis, nestled amongst the towering mountains. As we approached, the verdant greenery seemed to beckon us closer, promising a tranquil escape from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Our excitement grew as we packed our bags, eager to explore the mysteries hidden within the forest's depths. We hopped into the car, anticipation coursing through our veins as we drove towards our destination. As we arrived, we were greeted by a breathtaking sight. The mountains loomed majestically in the distance, their rugged peaks reaching towards the sky. The forest itself was a tapestry of emerald hues, with trees stretching towards the heavens and wildflowers carpeting the ground. We set off on foot, our senses alive with the sounds and smells of nature. The crisp air filled our lungs, invigorating us as we walked deeper into the heart of the forest. The rustling of leaves and chirping of birds provided a soothing soundtrack to our journey. But our peaceful reverie was soon shattered by a sudden hissing sound emanating from the undergrowth. We froze in fear. Unsure of what danger lurked nearby, our hearts pounding, we slowly edged closer to investigate. As we peered into the bushes, we spotted a snake slithering through the foliage. Its scales glinted in the dappled sunlight, its forked tongue flicking out as it continued on its way. We breathed a sigh of relief, grateful that the danger was not more severe. But our respite was short-lived. As we climbed one of the mountains, we heard heavy footsteps and labored breathing coming from below. Suddenly, a wild-eyed man appeared, brandishing a knife and advancing towards us with malicious intent. Our hearts racing, we knew that we had to act quickly if we wanted to survive. With adrenaline coursing through our veins, we scrambled up the mountain, our feet pounding against the rocky terrain. The man pursued us relentlessly, his eyes gleaming with a manic fury, but we refused to give up. With every ounce of strength we possessed, we pushed ourselves harder, determined to outrun our assailant as we rounded the mountain's peak. We caught sight of our car in the distance, a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. We sprinted towards it, our legs burning with exertion. Finally, we reached the safety of the car, our chests heaving with exhaustion and relief. We sped away, grateful to have escaped with our lives intact. The memory of that harrowing experience stayed with us. Long after we left the forest, it taught us to never take nature's beauty for granted, and to always be prepared for the unexpected. But despite the danger we faced, we knew that we would always cherish the memories of our time in that wondrous and awe-inspiring place. As we drove away, we couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and loss. The forest had promised so much beauty and tranquility, yet it had also held danger and fear. We wondered what other secrets it held, what other mysteries were waiting to be discovered. Days passed, and we found ourselves unable to shake off the memory of our harrowing experience. We pored over maps and researched the history of the forest, hoping to uncover some clue as to what had driven that man to attack us. Finally, we stumbled upon a long-forgotten legend. It spoke of a hermit who had once lived in the heart of the forest, shunning all human contact and living off the land. Over time, he had become increasingly reclusive and paranoid, convinced that outsiders were out to steal his precious resources. As we read on, we realized with a start that the man we had encountered fit the description perfectly. It seemed that he had been driven mad by his isolation and paranoia, and had lashed out at us in a desperate attempt to protect his home. We felt a pang of sadness as we realized that this beautiful forest had also been the site of someone's downfall. But we also felt a sense of understanding and empathy towards the hermit, knowing that he had simply been trying to survive in a world that had left him behind.